So we've seen our introduction to the modulation format known as on-off keying, and we've given ourselves the tools to do an analysis of the performance. So now we're going to develop an equation for the bit error rate of on-off keying. So remember the binary case, we had signal logical 0, which was 0. And in this case, I'm going to assume that my P of t, which was my waveform, let's just assume that it's some rectangle, so that it's just 0 outside of the bit interval. So then I would have this simple equation for the binary case. So now what I have to do in order to do the analysis, I'm going to look for what is the signal space representation for on-off keying. And remember, the signal space has some basis vector, so that my signal is going to have to be some coefficient multiplied by the basis vector. The basis vector is orthonormal, right? So the energy here is 1. So this coefficient is going to have to represent what is the energy of that logical 1. So again, the reason that we're doing this approach as a signal space is because it allows us to do a statistical analysis to find the BER, or the bit error rate. So I said that that first equation I gave you was based on rectangular form. So here's a sequence of bits where I'm using a rectangular waveform. And I can imagine that I take one of those rectangles and I could use that as my basis vector. So I could use this basis vector. So that becomes the C of I. And the reason I have this equation amplitude square root of t is just to equate, this, making this waveform unit energy would take that. So A is the amplitude of the pulse, t is the duration of the pulse, and next, suppose I did not have a perfectly square wave. I wanted to have a square wave, but my equipment was not as good. This is a trace from the equipment in the laboratory. Okay, so this is a more realistic pulse shape that we'll have to look with, but nothing really changes. Whatever the shape of my pulse is, I'm going to make that my basis vector. So I put that equation just because it's easy to write, but it doesn't change the generality of our approach. No matter what the shape of our pulse is, we can do this. So according to this, my amplitude and my coefficient is, certainly when I send a 0, there's nothing. Since this is unit energy, and if I have amplitude A and duration t, that means that if I calculate what is the energy of S1, it would be A amplitude times the square root of t. So now I have the coefficients of my vector, my symbols, my 2 bits. I have the coefficients in signal space. That means I can plot them now in signal space. So when I plot them, I notice that this signal space is of unit dimension. There's no 2 dimensionalities. There's a single basis vector. One's at the origin, and the other one is at some location on the line. So this is just a one-dimensional signal space, very simple case of binary. So in order to do the analysis, remember that we had this filtering going on, so that we had so what's going on with this filtering, and how do I represent this in signal space? So in essence, I want to put my received signal, my R of t, what I have here, I want to put it in signal space, right? So this is sort of where the pulse shape, what am I doing? I'm transmitting pulses at a certain shape, I'm doing filtering at a certain shape. Well, really, what I'm filtering on the pulse shape. So I get the same pulse shape, and that is essentially, this filtering process is creating the coefficient. So I'm filtering, I'm sampling. Well, that's the equivalent of doing this inner product. So this is where sort of the ideas come together. I gave you a very simple structure. Now I'm telling you in signal space, I could come back and develop this structure. So in one-dimensional space, I have a received vector, which is just one coefficient. It's the inner product. And we've seen that's the inner product of the received signal with the impulse response, and so we have this equation. So, as I said, I have these coefficients. I can plot them in signal space. So I plot them in signal space. As I mentioned, this vector is just the origin, so length is 0, energy is 0. And S1 is this vector. It has a length of a square root of t. So now, what I want to do is I want to make a fair comparison. We're looking at on-off keying now. We're going to look at BPSK pretty soon. And I want to compare the two, and I want to compare them fairly. And I could say, oh, they're at the same amplitude, but that's not really fair, because what I really care about is the power that I use to send my information, the energy I use to send my data. So a better way of normalizing is to have the same average energy per bit for the two systems that I want to compare. So the last step of getting to signal space, I'm not really in signal space yet. The last step is to make the coefficients be not based on amplitude and pulse duration, but to have the coefficients in signal space should be determined by the average energy, or not determined by, but parameterized by the average energy per bit. So that means here we're going to say the average energy per bit. We're going to use the notation that's E sub B, energy per bit. And I want to normalize my modulation format so that EB represents the average energy per bit. So I have 2 bits. I have 1 bit and a 0 bit. And I'm going to calculate what is the energy in each one of these in this nascent signal space I'm building. So if I take S1, it's energy based on the equations we use is a squared of t. Now, the energy of bit 0 is 0 because I'm not using any energy to transmit anything. The signal itself is 0. So now I want to find the average energy per bit, and it's 1/2 of E1, 1/2 of E0, because E0 is 0. So it's 1/2 of E1. So I get a squared over t, a squared t divided by 2. So these were my original coordinates. But that's not really signal space, because signal space, it's got to be in this parameter EB. But that's okay. Now I know how to relate what were these coordinates I found and to relate it to the energy per bit. So now this is just another way of writing. And this is signal space. I've got my coefficients for my 2 symbols, my 2 binary bits here. And if I look at the length of this, it's going to give me an energy of 2 EB, and I know that if I take the average of that 2 EB and this 0, I'm going to get EB as the energy per bit. So all makes sense. This is the correct normalization for signal space. So if I look now at this signal space representation, I can apply my geometric intuition. I know how far apart are these 2 points in this one-dimensional space. This separation between the 0 and the 1 is this square root of 2EB. So it's got a physical interpretation related to the energy of the signal. Now, I receive some signal. I receive a signal. I represent this signal in signal space, so I map it onto this vector space, and this is the vector, for instance. And now we go back to our previous ideas. How do we process this received signal? I've put it in signal space. Now I've got to make a decision, and I can just apply the same strategy I discovered earlier, but now I'm going to put it in the mathematical configuration of signal space. So what I said I would do is I would take the 2 means, so the locations of the 2 symbols in signal space. I would find the midpoint between them. That would form my threshold. And depending on where this R is, if this R is greater than this midpoint, I will choose signal 1. If the R falls to the other side, if it's less, the coefficient of R is less than this midpoint, then I will choose logical 0. Great. Now I have normalized signal space representing this modulation format, and I can analyze it to find the bit error rate. So let's do that now. So how do we calculate the probability of error? First of all, we're going to recognize that there are two types of errors. I could have sent a 0 and chosen a 1. That's an error. Or I could have sent a 1 and chosen a 0. That's also an error. So when we calculate the probability of error, we're going to have to take into account these two different types. So now I'm going to give you some math. I'm going to write this the right way. The probability error is the probability I sent a 0 times the probability I had an error when I sent that 0. And this is when I have an error. Plus the probability that I sent a 1 times the probability that I made an error when I sent that 1. So the probability of error is just the sum of the probabilities of the two types of errors. So here we have the first type. There's two parts to this sum. The first one is the first type of errors. The second one is really the second type of errors. I've chosen 1, but it's an error because a 0 was sent. And the reason I chose a 1 was because the R happened to be bigger than this threshold. So the next assumption I'm going to make is that we have equal priors. Remember I said that the probability of 0 and the probability of 1 are the a priori probabilities. And in this case, for the rest of the analysis, and as I say, in all efficient communication systems, these are sculpted so that these probabilities are equal. So that just becomes a 1/2 for both of them. Now, what does that condition mean? I said conditioned on a 0 being sent. What does a 0 being sent mean? If I sent a 0, then there's no signal there. That received signal is only noise. So I can say that this condition is the same as saying that the received signal is just noise. Now, when I sent a 1, what happened? Well, then there was a signal present, but there was also noise. And the signal present in signal space is this point. So now I've sort of taken the logical condition and turned it into a mathematical condition. So now we just follow through with our analysis. If I say that R is greater than something and R is equal to N, it's just the probability that N is greater than this thing. And I do the same substitution here. I say I replace R by this square root of 2EB of N. And when I simplify this, it comes out to be just N is less than the negative of this number. And here, N is of course greater than the positive of this number. So by the symmetry of these two things, each represented by a half, this is equal to this integral. When I take the probability of this N, which is a 0 mean, Gaussian random variable with a variance of sigma squared, it just comes out to this equation. So I just take probability Gaussian and I get this. Remember I defined this Q function, and I'm going to use the Q function to write something a little more compact than always writing out the whole integral. This is why we use the Q function. So now I'm going to say that this probability of error is just equal to the square root of EB divided by 2 divided by sigma. Now you're going to see me replace sigma squared by N0 over 2. Before I just used a symbol, it's sigma. Now we're going to use another notation very common in communications, which is based on the power spectral density of the noise. And so I'm going to use N0 to represent this density of the noise. N0 over 2 is another way of measuring in the laboratory if we want to figure out what the variance is. So once I have done this, I substitute in for sigma this other notation, and it simplifies to this representation. And of course, what is this EB over N0? Well, EB over N0 is something that looks like signal divided by noise. I'm not going to call it SNR because there's sort of more precise mathematics before I'm going to talk about that, but it's like a signal to noise ratio, and it's just intuitive. The bigger the EB, the more energy I have, the probability of error is going to go down. But if I have more noise, the probability of error is going to go up. So this is just sort of all makes common sense. We've done our analysis, we've come down, and we have a nice quantitative expression for what this modulation format will provide. You give it this much energy in the bit, you have to face that much noise. Voila, here is what your performance will be. And the last step is just to plot that. So if I were going to create a plot here on the x-axis, I have this ratio, energy per bit divided by n0. And here on a logarithmic scale, I have the BER. I might mention this is also logarithms because this is in dB. And this gives the classic waterfall curve for the bit error rate. And this is for on-off keying modulation. So one thing I just want to mention that if I have, what I want is to have lower bit error rate. And so we're going to see in another modulation format, is it better or worse than this one? So the last thing I want to leave you with is something that is more related to optical communications. I've talked just generally mathematically about on-off keying, but on-off keying was one of the first ways of communicating with light. And in optical communications, we have sort of another vocabulary. Sometimes we call it on-off keying, but we often call it intensity modulation. So when there's a logical zero, there's no laser. I'm not transmitting anything. There's no power. So I'm modulating the intensity. When I say no laser, I mean zero amplitude. The laser is present when there's a logical one. There is power. So that's what we mean by intensity modulation. And on the detection side, we call direct detection. I use a single photodiode. This photodiode is just saying, is there light there or is there no light there? When it's a logical zero, I'm going to have only thermal noise coming from the photodiode. It'll be very, very small signal. When there's a logical one, the light is hitting the photodiode, it's getting much more energy, and the signal power is present. It's not just the thermal noise. So we've had an analysis of on-off keying. We've understood its performance, we've quantified the performance, and now we have an idea of how this is used in optical communications.